So as mentioned before, we have sedentary, moderately active, very active. All my athletes, you are in a very active state. If you're someone who's only doing an occasional workout class periodically, 3 to 4 days a week, I would consider you moderately active. If you do no exercise at all, just basic daily tasks, then you are typically sedentary. There are sometimes people that are so sedentary and move so little, you might even have to reduce that by some. But ultimately, when we do these, the tracking is one of the most important things to know that we're actually getting all of the calories that we are claiming that we intake, and we're not missing calories that go untracked. So this is a number here that, based on your activity level and your goal, you would use to multiply by your body weight, and that'll put you in a rough estimate of what your daily caloric intake is based off activity level and goal. So I've had an example for each of these with different athletes whose information I'll keep private. So these 3 athletes in specific all wanted to gain weight. They wanted to put on more muscle. So they need to be in a caloric surplus. One thing to understand with that, you are going to gain some body fat with that. We have to gain some body weight in a caloric surplus. It's fine. Once you reach close to your desired range, like maybe you're trying to gain 10 to 15 pounds, then you can start to maybe cut out a little bit, eat more around maintenance and participate in sports and lifting. You could even go in more of a weight loss range if you need to. So let's just say that all of these athletes are trying to gain 10 pounds. Well, how many calories is 10 pounds equivalent to? How many calories is 1 pound equivalent to? The answer to that, 3,500 calories. So sorry about that, I had to get my marker open. 3,500 calories equals approximately 1 pound. In order to get that in basically a week, like, we need 3,500 calories in addition to what we burn and what we already are consuming. Like, we need a 3,500 calorie surplus at the end of a week if we wanted to see about a 1 pound increase weekly. That could be as simple as just adding 500 calories a day to what your maintenance weight would be at. So we add 500 calories to each day over a week times 7 days. That could put us into a 3,500 caloric surplus for some steady gain. And in theory, over 10 weeks, that could result in 10 pound increase. So with these 3, they're all going for weight gain. They're all athletes, they're all very active. So we got 20 to 22 is what we're gonna multiply their individual body weights by. And we'll see the differences here when we do the math with it. All right, so when we take the 135, the 155, and the 175 pound athlete, we multiply their body weights by that amount, we come up with the daily caloric range. So if you're 135, 2,700, we would just round that to 3,000 if we're going for weight gain. If you're 155, consuming 3,100 to about 3,400, you can even up it to 3,500 if you wanted to keep it simple, a day. A 175 pound athlete would consume approximately 3,500 to 3,850 or even 3,900 calories a day. So you'll see there's about a 400 calorie increase with each of those as their body weights increase about 20 pounds. Then when you look at it through the week, you know, the day is important in tracking each day, but when we look at like making our progress, it's more week to week to week. We set goals that are around anywhere between 8 and 12 or 12 to 20 weeks with reaching that goal. So based off these daily caloric intakes for their goal, their weekly caloric intake should fall into around this. You could round that to 21,000. You could round that to 24,000. You could round that to 27,000. But if we fall in between this range, at the end of the week, we're in good hands and we're moving towards that progress. The biggest thing, in my opinion, though, with all this, is like, we may have that number, we may know how much to eat, but we might not be tracking how many calories we're actually consuming, and that'll just be another video to talk about that. So now, let's look at an athlete that's 205. They want to lose weight. Like, their goal, they said, was around 195, maybe even 190, because they wanted to get faster. So for them, they're gonna multiply their body weight times The weight loss category, even though they're still very active, it's gonna be 14 to 16. So now this athlete who's 205 multiplies their body weight times 14 to 16. Their daily caloric intake for losing weight at a steady rate, or at least a starting estimate, is 2870 or 2,870 calories to 3,280. If your goal is weight loss, then you could round off those calories to the nearest 50 going down. So like 2,800, you could say 3,250, or even as low as 3,200, right? But things to be monitoring when we're on weight loss, you know, typically 1 to 2.5 pounds lost a week is a healthy rate. Anything more than that, we could be affecting weight loss, sleep, hormones, satiation, performance overall, hydration. We don't want to lose too much weight over a long period of time. So they should be consuming also around 20,000 to about 22,900. You can even say 22,500 calories in a week. We'll talk a little bit about the individual macronutrients and stuff, but some things are gonna fall in consistency, whether it's you're trying to lose weight, gain weight, or maintain weight. Your protein servings, we're typically gonna fall around a 1 gram per protein, 1 grams of protein per pound of your individual body weight. So a 135-pound athlete. And then if you're trying to gain, you can always just round it up by 5 additional grams for 5 additional pounds. So like if you're 135, you could just go 140, 155 could go for 160 a day, 175-pound athlete could go for 180 a day. Try to just stick with a 25 to 30 gram, 35 gram range per serving. So it's a little more. There's a lot of stuff coming out now saying that we might be able to absorb more than 40, and there's certain factors at play there, but realistically, it's pretty consistent suggestion to go within a 25 to 35 grams of protein per serving so that we don't waste any of it. So, I mean, that could be really easy for a 135-pound athlete. If they need to get 140 grams of protein, they could just basically get 4 to 5 servings of about 30 grams, and they'll be there. As you get up in weight a little bit more, you just gonna have to distribute it a little bit more. So, you know, protein shakes, I'll typically do 2 a day because they're fast acting, good amino acid profile, do them before and after workouts. Usually I'll do 3 different servings of meat, and then I also get some eggs with it as well. But, you know, eggs, protein shakes, tuna, very high amino acid profiles, good source of vitamins and minerals, things I like to incorporate every day as a protein source. But typically we're all gonna fall within a 5 to 7 servings of different portions of protein each day that fall into a 25 to 35 gram range. Just for reference, when we look at meat, it is always going to be a 4-ounce serving size. So whenever we look at a serving size, 4 ounces is 1 serving size. Protein and calorie content can vary by the meat. If it has a high fat content, it's gonna be a little higher in fat and carry a lot more calories. So if you're trying to gain weight, go with stuff that's more like 80-20, 70-30%, not as lean a meat. Go with stuff with the skin on it and the fat with it too. If you're trying to lose weight, maybe go with the leaner sources there. And a pound, for example, is 16 ounces. So 4 servings would be a pound of meat. Carbohydrates. So your total calories from carbs can vary, but as athletes, we do kind of want to prioritize and use that as our form of like energy storage. So if an athlete were to want to lose weight, I mean, we can look at what their current fat intake is. Maybe we can reduce that a bit, but oftentimes carbs are the ones that are maybe a little easier to reduce. Ultimately, it doesn't make a difference whether you're low carb or high carb. It does come down to your total calorie range, this stuff that we did down here. Other than that, it comes down to the total calories. It's not really anything to do with the type of carbohydrate, how many carbohydrates you consume, so long as it stays within your appropriate calorie range. But as an athlete, you're going to want 35 to 55% of your total calories, which is this a day and this by the week, coming through carbs. So let's just say, I'll do the math here on this section. This one's easy. So a 135-pound athlete minimally wants to get 2,700 or up to 3,000. I'll go with this is easier. So cut this into, let's just say 50%. So times 0.50 we're gonna get 1,500. These are all calories, by the way. Calories, calories, calories. So now, proteins and carbs, there's 4 calories per gram. So we want to divide this by 4, and this will tell us, the 1,500, how many grams of carbohydrates we need. So divided by 4 is going to come out to, I have to do the math, damn it. Wait, it's going to be 375, I think. Look at that, I was on the money and it's confirmed. So 1,500 calories is approximately half of your total calories that you need. To figure out how many calories in that many grams of carbohydrates, we divided by 4. You, Mr. or Mrs. 135-pound athlete trying to gain muscle, needs approximately 375 grams a day. It's a pretty high amount, especially compared to what we're used to eating without tracking. So, if that person's doing 5 to 7 meals a day, or even as low as 4 to 6 meals a day, they would have to figure out how to distribute that and not make it too absurd, right? So like if this person did 70 to 120 gram servings, that means in about 3 meals, they're almost at their carbohydrate intake if they went 120 grams every time. If that's too extreme and you feel too full, lighter portions are probably better. Sometimes the type of carb can affect how much you can eat overall. For example, when I need to stuff calories that are a bit challenging for me at times, then I use a lot of smoothies. I'll make really high smoothies. I'll use honey and syrup and agave to add sugar and calories to it, only because it's less satiating. It'll allow me to get more total calories, and I'll be able to eat more later throughout the day. Okay, so fat, we're looking at around 10 to 30% of our total calories. Honestly, the 10 might be a little bit low, probably more like 15 to 20% from total calories. That's what TC stands for, is total calories. I'm gonna keep this one simple. So that 135-pound athlete that was seeking to gain weight ended up around a 3,000 calorie range at the highest point. So 3,000 calories. If I just wanted them to get 25% of their total calories from fat, that means I multiply 3,000, their total calories, times 0.25 to establish 1/4 of their caloric intake. So we get 750 calories. We need to now divide that by 9 because there is 9 calories per gram of fat. So we're dividing by 9 calories to find the grams, which equals 83.3, which we would just basically round up to 85 since this athlete's trying to gain weight. If that athlete were trying to lose weight, then we would dial it back to probably 80 just to keep it simple. So that is how we would find our fat intake on a simple level. Lastly, omega-3s are very important for cardiovascular health, dopamine sensitivity, circulation, inflammation reduction, cognitive health, brain development. They're so good for us. They are literally performance enhancers. Now, I know omega-6s get a bad rep lately. Ultimately, what I feel that we should really try to avoid are the processed foods and the processed oils. It doesn't mean we have to completely exile them from our life, but it isn't necessarily just that omega-6s are bad. More so, it's the processed omega-6s from the sweets, the baked goods, the fried foods, the chips that have plenty of processed oils in them, soybean, canola oil, cottonseed oil, if it's not olive oil, coconut oil, ghee, butter, lard, tallow, or avocado oil, I would typically not recommend it. Other things that are good are animal fat. One of my favorites would be salmon or fatty cold water fish that have a really high omega-3 and vitamin D content, which is amazing for inflammation, for respiratory health and support, calcium absorption, and it's just good for us, very good for us. You also get some potassium and calcium with salmon too. Salmon is one of my favorite meals to have in an athlete's weekly diet.